5 years ago, I quit the last job that I thought I would ever have in my entire life, but that's just half the truth, and I'll explain in a little while. And honestly, by the time I got to high school, I knew I wanted to be my own boss, really because of my parents and my dad showing me the way of how to be an entrepreneur. But knowing what you want and actually making it happen are two different things, because yes, I had my freelance work at the time, but really I wasn't making enough to support myself, which that led to my first job, which led to my second job, and then the final boss, my third job, which that's the one I hated the most. So my first official job, I worked at a frozen yogurt spot, which was a pretty interesting time of my life. That lasted about 2 months, or really the whole summer. And then I went into working for the YMCA. That lasted 6 months. And the YMCA wasn't the worst job ever, but honestly, I didn't like that one either. But I was super intentional because I saved up money while I was working at the Y. And since I was saving so much money when I was working at the Y, because I was doing quadruple overtime anytime I could, and also on the side doing all of my freelance gigs, I had enough to be able to quit. And now that I think about it, I think I had another random job after quitting the Y that only lasted like a month and a half. So I was pretty much full-time freelancing with video and photography for almost a full year until life hit me with a big reality check. Because my whole family decided to pick up where I lived in Philly to move to North Carolina. And honestly, from that point, everything changed. And as most of you know, moving states is pretty expensive. And the first thing to go was my savings. Honestly, my business wasn't stable enough at the time to continue to support. My dad sat me down to have a real conversation that I hated in the moment, but really appreciate him for today. He simply was like, you need to find a way to make money in this transition until you are back on your feet. Obviously, that meant me getting a job, and we all know how much I hate one of those. And I was pissed at the time that he was telling me that. But as I look back, I knew that's exactly what I needed to hear, because that gave me all the ammo that I need to take what I was doing to the next level. And so I got a job at a place called Sprouts, a grocery store. And I can't stress enough how much I absolutely hated that job. And so I distinctively remember telling myself I was not going to be there for long. So once I got the job, I was there for about 2 to 3 months, but honestly, I was grinding every single day on my business, trying to get a new client. And I finally struck gold with my first client in North Carolina. I do some work for them, and with that money, I literally took a trip to Miami with my best friend. So the Miami trip wasn't just a vacation. On that vacation, I was actually in negotiation for my first real retainer with that same client that I got. And it was for $4,500 a month. And if I'm being honest, at the time, it felt like $1 million. Finally getting paid for what I always wanted to do. So signing that retainer gave me all the freedom that I need to finally quit that job that I wanted to this whole time. And honestly, I thought that would be the last job that I would ever have to quit, but that's not the full story. Because then 2020 came, and we all know what happened next. 2020 wasn't just a difficult financial year, it was also a difficult year in life in general, because I lost one of my cousins and I started dealing with a lot of anxiety. And if you want to learn more about my anxiety journey, click on this video right here. But by God's grace, I made it through 2020. And honestly, it took me about 1.5 years to recover from COVID. And it wasn't until 2022 where the clients that I signed in 2019 came back, but for way more money. I ended up signing with them to do a $25,000 website along with another retainer at the end of it. But by the time 2023 came around, honestly, our relationship pretty much was coming to an end at that point. The leadership changed, and honestly, mentally, I was looking for something new anyway. Because what I realized with my creative agency, although I was blessed to have it and it did a lot of good, it wasn't really what I felt like God was calling me to. So by 2023, I actually had the opportunity to move to Atlanta. And I moved to Atlanta with someone that I consider a brother. I mean, I've known him my whole life, so yeah, that's pretty much my brother. And he gave me the opportunity to work with him in his creative agency and do some content stuff for him. And as I was working with him, I actually got another opportunity with his roommate to do some content as well. And although all of this was a blessing, I'm not gonna lie, it was a little bit of an ego hit going from making $4,000 to $8,000 a month with my own business and my own creative agency to only making $2,000 a month. But it wasn't just the $2,000 that I was getting. Honestly, it was access to things that I've never experienced before, different masterminds, going to different mansions, and being around millionaires all the time, which is something I'll be forever grateful for. For years, running my own company, I thought I was living the dream. But deep down, I knew that wasn't something that I really wanted to do. Again, I was just doing it for money. And I'm glad that I was able to do it because I gained a lot of skills. So fast forward to about August of 2023, I ended up getting another opportunity to be able to get into sales full time. And as you can see throughout my journey, a lot of the things that I was doing really was just for money purposes and not necessarily for the purpose that I felt like God has called me to. And in 2024, by the grace of God, I had my first six-figure year, which was great and everything, but it still wasn't something that I felt like God was truly calling me to. And honestly, my word for this year is simply obedience. Ever since I was 15, YouTube is something that I wanted to do. And I don't regret my past of having a creative agency or even going into sales, because when I made a bit of money and I gained skills then that I can use now for my YouTube career. And so yes, another transition, another new skill, another new thing that I have to do, but I'm grateful for it all because again, nothing was wasted. I was able to learn a bit of skills in sales, I learned a bit of skills in my creative agency. So now I can put that all together and be obedient to where God has called me to. Because when you do 500 plus sales calls, you get a little bit better at talking to people. When you do a whole bunch of videos and photos for other clients, you can do it for yourself. And so now that I'm looking back, as they say, hindsight is 2020, I'm realizing all the things that God put me through. So now I can be at this very point. So now this transition is in full effect and I'm transitioning now out of sales into doing YouTube full time. And honestly, I don't know what that's going to look like. I want it to happen faster than it's currently happening, but one thing that I am going to be is obedient to what God has called me to. And I feel like I ask this question in pretty much every video I do, but this is something I want to really seep in your heart because I wish someone asked me this about 4 years ago. But what is it that God is calling you to be obedient to? What is the last thing he told you to do? I want you to really think about it and really just do that. Be obedient to what he's called you to and be grateful to where he has you right now because you never know what your current situation is doing for the future you.